Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing some of my biggest letdowns and disappointments in all of gaming history. So let's get started. Alright, and before you start writing a comment and saying, oh my god, you're so wrong about this, and clicking dislike, just a couple disclaimers about this. These are some of my biggest disappointments in gaming history, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad game. It just means it didn't live up to the hype that I was expecting. And as I was creating this list, I realized there was a ton of games that I was expecting a lot out of through the years that didn't live up to their expectations. So this is just going to be a few of those games in this video. The first one I want to talk about is Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. And again, before you guys start saying, I love that game, what are you talking about? That game lived up to all the expectations that I had. Well, that's great for you, but for me, it didn't live up to the expectations because it was not Solid Snake. You played as Raiden. I mean, the game started out fine. You started out as Solid Snake, and you played through the first level, and it was really intense and great. And then the next level, you take control of this guy called Raiden. You have no idea who he is, and you're battling enemies, and you keep waiting to go back to playing as Solid Snake, and the levels are repetitive. You spend pretty much the entire game between two silos just going back and forth. I don't know, I was just expecting a whole lot more out of this game, especially because the reviews came out and gave it a 9.5 or 9.7, or a lot of them were giving it 10s. It is not a 10. It's an okay game, but by no means did it live up to anything close to what I was expecting, especially because the first Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite games of all time. The next game I want to talk about is Twisted Metal 3. If any of you guys out there grew up playing these vehicular combat games and you love Twisted Metal 2, then you know exactly what I mean when it comes to talking about Twisted Metal 3. The game was a complete abomination compared to its predecessor, and made me question why 989 Studios, the studio that took over for creating Twisted Metal at the time, even bothered making the game. It was so bad. The only thing that was better about this was the graphics were improved a little bit, but the gameplay, the controls, the storyline, the characters, just everything about the game outside of that was completely broken. And to this day, I remember how excited I was when I bought the game in the store and was driving home with it. I was like, this is gonna be the greatest game ever! And it wasn't, not by a long shot. How many of you guys remember Quest 64? When this game came out, it was marketed as the first real true RPG on the N64. And when I saw that, I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. I literally jumped on it day one, ran to the store, picked it up, brought it home, popped it in, started playing it, and 2 minutes later I realized that I'd been had. Today this game is well known for being infamously dry when it comes to any kind of storyline and action. And back in the day when this was coming out, I felt like all that knowledge that is known today was dropped on me all at once in that first 2 minutes of playing this game. You play as Brian, the hero, and your quest is to save your father who's disappeared from the monastery. And in conjunction with your father disappearing, you're also investigating the theft of a mage book for some reason that will bring about the end of the world if it falls into the wrong hands. And that's about it. There's literally nothing more to the storyline. The NPCs in this game are bland, they don't talk to you, there's nothing to do in the game. There's an insane amount of random battles that just seem to last forever. This is one of those games that I would give to someone to torture them. Anyways, moving on to my next choice, Bravely Second: End Layer. For those of you who have played Bravely Default, the first game in the series, you probably really liked it if you're into role-playing games, especially retro JRPG games like Bravely Default. So for me, I was super excited for Bravely Second: End Layer to come out, and I waited for what felt like forever for this game to be finally released in the West. So when it did, of course I had it pre-ordered, and I got it, and I popped it in first day and played it, and was like, okay, the storyline in this is a little bit far-fetched, but I'll go with it because I really liked the first game. But the more I played it, the more I realized how dumb the storyline was. which is kind of an important thing when you're talking about a role-playing game. You want to be engaged in what they're talking about and why you're even playing the game in the first place. And on top of the storyline, the character development is absolutely atrocious. The comedy falls completely flat in this. There's just really nothing redeeming about Bravely Second, which is unfortunate because I really loved the original Bravely Default. And with how bad this second one was, I don't even know if I wanted to make another one of these. Which brings me to my final game that I want to talk about today, Metroid Other M. You guys who like Metroid out there, which I'm sure it's a whole lot of you, are very familiar with the division that Metroid Other M has caused between the fans of the series. There's a lot of people out there that will defend this to the death, and I still don't really understand why. If you love Metroid Other M, please indulge me in the comments as to why, because I'd love to hear your side of the story. For me, playing Other M completely broke the story arc of what Metroid was all about. There was no exploring on your own in this game. It was everywhere you went, you'd bump into team members, and there'd be random story arcs thrown in that would make no sense when you combine them with the rest of the series, which doesn't really bother me too much, to be honest, because in an action-adventure game like Metroid, I don't really care too much about the storyline. It can be injected here and there, and I'm fine with that. But when the gameplay is completely broken, and the reason for why you can't use weapons is because someone told you not to use them, it's just really hard to put yourself in Samus's shoes and feel like you're living the adventure. It feels like a fraud. And there have been many more games out there that have severely disappointed my expectations that I didn't include in this list today. I just wanted to shoot through a few for you guys to let you know where I'm coming from and what I was expecting growing up and playing these games. And I'd love to hear what games have disappointed you and what makes them disappointing for you. Let me know in the comments section below. I'll definitely be checking them out. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a good one.